What's going on YouTube? Thanks for tuning into the channel. Welcome to another video. This video I have that is about play the seasons of life, starting off this new series of the strategic mindset, and I'm gonna kind of have three, but I'm gonna just let it play out. I'm gonna stop promoting the future, just make it happen. But let me jump right into this. Play the seasons of life. What does this mean? It means that life has its seasons, and if you know anything about me, I love metaphors. I can go all day with the metaphors, and that's the metaphor we're using right now. And the biggest thing about the seasons is that the seasons change periodically. There is a predictability, a predictable aspect of a season that you can kind of predict when it should start and it ends. It's the 21st of the third month, so 3, 6, 9, 12. If you didn't know, now you know. But there's also a little bit of a random aspect. Sometimes you have seasons that are a little colder than others. I know here in New Jersey we're getting a lot more snow than we've gotten in about at least half a decade, if not a decade or so. But the seasons can be different, but the biggest thing is that the seasons change. And that's really the first thing, is that everything is temporary. Anything you're experiencing now, anything you're feeling now, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, will change. Whether it's going to be better or worse, I don't know, but I can guarantee you it's not going to be exactly the same as it is now. Things are always in a constant flux, and maybe you don't feel it as much on the day-to-day, but when you look 3 months past, you'll be like, damn, the weather has changed, even though it was a gradual change as it happened. So that's the same way I feel about life. Whatever you're experiencing, you have to understand that it's temporary, and a lot of times we get attached, we get emotional of what's happening in the moment, and not having the hindsight and more of the long-term view of what's going to change in that time frame. So that's the first point here. The second point coming up. So the second point here is kind of continuing on that point. Since things are going to change, Fabulous, the Fabulous Vocabulous, he actually has a line that I really like. I think it's in Young OGs is the song, if you want to look it up. But he says, "Get it while the getting's good. After that, preserve that shit." And I think that's a very important thing to understand, whether it be with money, whether it be for your health and your fitness, whether it be with women, whether it be with something else you can really think of. Get it while the getting's good. After that, preserve that shit. What that really means is, in the good times, that's when, and Robert Greene actually has something very, very similar to this. In the good times, that's when you need to be vigilant. When things are going your way, whether it be, I work in sales, there's always hot seasons in sales. When you hit that hot season, you need to exploit it. You want to get as much sales done during that time to basically hold you over the slow seasons. I definitely would agree in my dealings with women and stuff like that. In the summer months, the spring and the summer, that is generally when you're going to find the easiest ability to find something to do, to find people to hang out with, or to kick it to, whether it's taking them out, having more options. You can go to the park in the summer. It's a little bit harder when it's snow all over on the ground. You can't really go anywhere. So that's another aspect. And even thinking of these COVID times, this might be a little bit of a longer season. It might be like a year where the weather hasn't been good all year, keeping with the metaphor. And you kind of have to understand what you have, and if you can get it while the getting's good, during those slower months, during those colder months, during those more turbulent weather times, you will have something to preserve you, and whatever it may be. Even in your health, for example, I know for me, in the summertime, in the fall, I definitely, when it starts to get colder, I start to be trying to go outside more and more and more and more, because I know once this winter time hits, especially with the way it's been snowing, and especially with this working from home, my vitamin D deficiencies are going to be kicking in. I'm not going out as much. I'm not getting as much of that sunlight on my body that is basically making me feel better, raising the endorphins, raising my mentality from a physiological standpoint. Since vitamin D, they always talk about that depression that people get during the winter times. But basically, understanding your seasons, understanding your flows, and understanding when you're in the good time, that's when you need to, be the most vigilant. You can't be slacking off because it's good, because the seasons change. There's going to be a time when it's worse, and vice versa. When it's the time that it's worse, you shouldn't be all emotional and contracting. You should be thinking, I know this is going to pass. I know the rations, I've had, and even if you don't have rations, because most of this is not as life or death as I'm making this metaphor out to be, that you can just think, next slow season, I don't want to be in this position. I know early on in my sales career, that was like one of the first realizations I had. I missed the hot season at my first job, 3 or 4 months in, nobody told me. And then basically I just made sure I was like, next hot season, I'm going to be loaded with accounts. I'm going to have a bunch of accounts to close. And in that 2-month summer, because it was a summertime for K-12 school districts, that's who I was selling to at the time, I lit it up. I went from doing about 150,000 in sales to almost 900 grand in sales. So I did over $1 million in 2 years, but 90% of that million happened in my second year. So get it while the getting's good. After that, preserve that shit. Now on to the last one and the third one. And the third one here is creating evergreen systems. Systems that can withstand all of the elements. So if you know anything about an evergreen tree, it's one of those trees that stays green ever long, I guess is a way to say it. It's an evergreen tree, so basically it doesn't lose the leaves. I live in New Jersey, US, as I mentioned before, so we actually get wonderful seasons in that October, November time frame. You go to the park, it is gorgeous, there's leaves everywhere, but there are rare trees that don't actually lose their leaves. They keep that green all year round, and that's generally what you want to make your systems. When you're starting to plot out how to do things, and this is definitely how I look, I'm always playing the long game. I'm never looking at things in a short term, of what's the effect going to be in a week or 2 weeks or even 3 months. I'm like, what's the effect in a year, 5 years, 10 years of the things I'm doing? And you eventually want to create things so that, the seasons aren't washing away your stuff. Even if you think about, and some of it might be not ethical, we're just staying with kind of the idea here. So don't get too deep into it. But if you think about our food system, back in the day, 200 years ago, you could not get certain fruits when it wasn't that time of year. But we've created a system, at least in the United States where I'm at, where I can get bananas all year round. I ain't never seen a banana grow on a tree in my freaking life. So I'm saying we've created evergreen systems in the food and produce market where you can get these foods all year. And it's a system that might not be sustainable, which would be invalidating what I'm saying, because you do want it to be sustainable. But the general gist is that, it's something that naturally would not be giving you a return production every year over year. But if you can create the system, if you can be intentional about the supply lines, going to the stores, connecting it, being sure of the demand of a specific product, what you can do is you can provide something year long, and you never have to miss out. And that's generally when I start thinking about my life and what I want to do. Even thinking about how COVID hit, I had a certain amount of money saved up to whereas I didn't work for a few weeks. I had a little bit of a difficult time, but I was getting it when the getting's good, and I preserved that shit. So I had a ration to move on. And then when I filed the things with the unemployment and wrote my little letter about how I need to get my paycheck, eventually they got it to me and it didn't hurt me. But it was because I created, maybe not a perfectly evergreen and sustainable system, but I created something evergreen in an effect where, I could get that return there. The best option, if we think about it in more of a financial realm, is to create systems that are always bringing you money whether or not you work. So even if you were to get an illness, you were to get sick, or a major catastrophe were to happen in your family where you have to take off significant amount of time, you have a system that is producing, those fruitful results even when it's not necessarily the hottest season for you. So in all of this, when you take kind of like the first point to the last point, it's understanding that, you know, things are going to change. Whatever you're experiencing now is only temporary, and that needs to be the main focus. When the good times are good, you know, that's when you have to get it while the getting's good. After that, preserve that shit. Be vigilant when the times are good, and be hopeful when the times are bad. And then at the end of the day, what you want to create is evergreen systems that will allow you to mitigate any of the negative seasons or the slower seasons or more of the depression type season, so that you always are in a relatively good time compared to the swings you might have had earlier in your life. And you know, life is all a learning experience. You're not going to start at the top. No man has created a man. You got to build it yourself. So that's it for this one. If you like the content, like, comment, subscribe. And if you fuck with the vibe, welcome to the tribe. And you know what it is. Until next time, peace.